and welcome back, Rohan and Dr. Jha. Good to have you back with us today on a very exciting topic as election season rolls around. In India, of course, we have Bihar happening very soon. But in the US, you have New York City. And there is an India connection because Zohran Mamdani, I hope I pronounced that correctly, is of Indian origin. His mother is Indian, so is his father. I think he's a Gujarati Muslim, his father. His mother, of course, is the celebrated film director, Meera Nair. And Mamdani has jumped into the mayoral race. He won the Democratic Party's nomination quite decisively in the month of March, I think it was, and the election rolls around in November. And we've already had Eric Adams drop out, who was one of his challengers, and now all you're left with is Como, if I understand it correctly.
And Sliwa, the Republican candidate.
And the Republican candidate, right. So, Rohan, since you live in New York City, how is New York reacting to Mamdani?
Well, great to be here again, Advaita. Thanks for having both Saurabh and me. Always a great discussion that ensues. So it's really polarized, I must say. New York is, there's very few people in the middle. People either absolutely love him and can't wait for him to be mayor, and they're posting it on their social media, and some of them actually have him as their WhatsApp profile picture. That's the level of adoration. And then there are others who are calling him sort of like the bastion of decay, and how he will be singularly responsible for everything that goes downhill from now. So he's definitely a very polarizing figure.
Saurabh, do you agree? Do you think he is a polarizing figure?
Oh, no, not at all. No, I think I don't know what Rohan is saying over here. I mean, in the end, he is what New Yorkers deserve, quite honestly. So what this guy is, he is a product, a distillation of years and years of progressive pieties, progressive delusions, progressive mentality. And the reason why Mr. Singh is uncomfortable is now the chickens are finally coming home to roost. And so, he shouldn't be a polarizing figure. They should all love him because he says the sort of stuff that they've been harping on about for years. He says that crime is a social construct. That's what we hear, There's no such thing as a criminal, it's all the society, from Rousseau's kind of thesis. He also says, defund the police. Well, a few years ago when you had the post-George Floyd thing, that's what they were saying. They were harping on about defund the police. So now they've got somebody who wants to defund the police, who's putting his money where their mouth is. Now, their mouth is not where it should be. That's a different matter. But let's just stick to this. So I can't help but laugh that finally you're getting what you asked for. Good luck. Send me a postcard from Empire State.
I disagree completely.
You do? You disagree?
I do, because I don't think we asked for this. I think, and again, I don't know who we is, but I'd say over a period of time, New York had become quite safe, quite clean, quite livable, and I think everyone appreciated that. So I don't think anyone saw Mayor Bloomberg as a right-wing Republican who was here to sort of discriminate against minorities. If anything, I think the minorities are the ones who voted for him overwhelmingly. Same with Adams. I mean, forget about what happened in the last 1 year. From the time he took on, which was just around George Floyd protests up until, I'd say, about a year back, he was overwhelmingly voted in. So I don't think people really see it as progressive versus Republican. I think people just see it as I think people appreciate anyone who's tough on crime. People appreciate anyone who is building the city, revamping the economy, building infrastructure, and Bloomberg and Adams were focused on that. And I think the slide began during the Bill de Blasio, who was the mayor just before, he had 2 terms just before Adams. And I think people saw the decline that happened. Yeah. So I think it's really a function of people want homelessness solved. They want crime eradicated. And no, I don't agree with the Dr. Joy at all, because if that were the case, then the Black and Hispanic people who live in the impoverished parts of New York would have overwhelmingly voted for Zohran. And they didn't. So that's very telling. So I do think there's so many more layers to it. So no, the people who are most affected by crime and dirt and general urban decay are not voting for him.
So what you're saying, let me just clarify here, Rohan, is that blacks and the Hispanics didn't vote for Zohran?
No.
No.
His votes, so Staten Island, which is a predominantly white but blue-collared borough, voted for Cuomo. Brooklyn and Manhattan, which are mixed but mainly white and hipster and upwardly mobile, voted for Zohran. And the Bronx voted, which is primarily Black and Hispanic, voted overwhelmingly for Cuomo. And Queens was a mix, but mainly Zohran. But that's where I think his identity politics helped, his Bollywood TikTok videos helped, and speaking in Hindi and Urdu. And so he appealed to the newer immigrants, mainly Bangladeshis.
Yes, there was this video that went
So yeah,
viral.
identity politics had a lot to do with it.
There was this video that went viral of him using his hands to eat and speak at the same time. Saurabh, were you moved by that? I mean, did it remind you a little bit of back home? Although I know it's been a while since you've been back home.
Was I moved by it? About as moved as I am by, Rohanjit Singh's arguments, to be honest, which is not very much. But he's made some very astute observations. I just want to give you a different interpretation of those observations. The first extremely astute observation he's made is that the Hispanics and Blacks didn't necessarily vote for him. And this is not surprising, because the pieties that come from progressives, they don't come from Hispanics and Blacks. They're very clear about what's important. They know that the defund the police and that kind of nonsense, what the consequence of that, because they face it. They face it the most.
They face it disproportionately.
Yeah, they face it, and therefore they're more likely to vote with the thing between their ears. Whereas the progressive pieties really arise from people that are insulated from the consequences of their ideology. And so it was very fashionable to say defund the police. And lots of things are very fashionable in New York, including globalize the intifada. Well, go ahead. Go ahead and globalize it. And so you've got this bunch of people. And I'm glad, Rohanjit Singh, you know what he reminds me of? The prodigal son, the story of the prodigal son, the guy that is wayward, but he finally comes back. So, and what's that Hindi phrase? Subha ka bhula jo aya. Or Aya, something like that, right? Yeah. You know what I'm getting at. He's back home, so I have to celebrate that. But it's people like him, not him exactly, but people like him, the Indians that were, very kind of jazzy and flashy, voting for auntie, defund the police, globalize the intifada. They're the ones, that were ripping the posters off of Israeli babies. This is the group that has come, that is wealthy, well off. They go to fancy restaurants. They have to book 2 months in advance. They pay $150 for like 3 kebabs and other very mediocre Indian food. And now they're going to realize what defund the police is really all about. Now they're going to realize, and now some of them, like Rohanjit Singh, they've kind of come to their senses. I also wonder, if you could give me 2 more minutes. I know me and Rohanjit Singh have had a pact that we're not going to interrupt each other.
Go ahead. I'm very open to the insults now, so keep it coming, Saurabh.
So you mentioned Bihar, and
I didn't. Oh, the election. The election
in
Bihar.
Yeah. So if you remember the Lalu rise in Bihar, it was fueled obviously by populism, right? It was fueled by populism. I mean, and there's no doubt that even though there were some stuff about vote rigging, but he was very popular. And part of the angst that got him in was this idea of social justice, where people said it's not enough that we equal the so-called upper caste, but they need to be maidservants in our kitchen, just like we were once in
Yeah.
their kitchen. So justice is only served when the hunter becomes the hunted. So you have the same mentality in New York, where and other places that go for the extreme left, like AOC, where it's not enough where the pie expands for everybody. Some people just need to be worse off. And these people are very miserable. They will not raise the standard for anybody, but they will lower the standard for everybody. So that's what we have in New York. Essentially, it's Bihar on steroids. Watch the fun. I'm getting my popcorn out. I'll send you some as well, Advita. Popcorn.
Rohan, is it going to be fun?
Well, it's definitely going to be entertaining, but let me give Dr. Jha a credit for a few things. Yes, I think liberals in general have segued into becoming progressives, and I agree with him. Progressives is not really progressives. It's just sort of very militant, left-wing, extreme position where they believe in the cancel culture, they believe in absolute piety of, like, earlier it used to be don't discriminate against anyone because they have a different skin color or a different religion. Now it's almost like you need to deify someone if they are a different sexuality or a different skin color. So it's definitely moved very left. But okay, be that as it may, I'll grant him that. Places like San Francisco, New York, Boston have definitely been outliers in that regard, and they've definitely subscribed to that model that he's talking about. But I do think it's more than just that. I think in New York in particular, you have to take into account the fact that it has become extremely unaffordable. America was always the place where, unlike Europe, things were more affordable. You could go out and get an ice cream, and New York was always the most expensive city, but now it is extremely expensive. And I think what Zohran has done, full props to him, has been he's really tapped into that. So I think people are sort of ignoring and looking beyond all of the histrionics, all of the extreme left positions, and they're just, at least the people who are really affected by it are saying, wow, he's really talking about stuff that matters. Like, why is transportation so expensive? Why is childcare so expensive? Why are groceries so expensive? So the average person on the street, and I'll make an exception, not the black and brown community in places like the Bronx who are more affected by things like crime, but yeah, the average Bangladeshi taxi driver or the Nepalese tea store owner is basically saying, I get my rent stabilized. I don't have someone who could increase it by 12% per year, and therefore I could get my family kicked out of my seemingly rent stabilized apartment. I might actually be able to make more than a 10% profit in my small business that I'm running. So I think these things are clicking. And I do think that there's some element of imperialism, or call it detached from reality, that people like Adams and Cuomo bring to the table, where the impression is that people are not being listened to. And I have to give Zohran full credit. Like, he literally is running a campaign, a very well-executed, very well-oiled machine, grassroots level. He's got no billionaire donors, obviously, because he hates billionaires. He says we don't need capitalism, we don't need billionaires. Why should they exist? Despite the fact that he's anti-business, he's got 52,000 volunteers. These are just like youngsters running around between classes in college and school and high school who are volunteering for him. That number has gone up to 72,000 now as we're getting closer to the race. So I do think there's a level of anger, discontent, and people like Cuomo especially are at the sort of crosshairs of it, because he's seen as this sort of rich guy who comes from a political family, and he's got the right last name. And I think people, and of course he's got baggage, and Zohran, for all of his failings, he doesn't have baggage. Not yet. He's too young for baggage, but I do think that's working in his favor too.
52,000 followers. Saurabh, that says something, right? That his message
not just followers, not just followers, volunteers.
Volunteers
people
on the ground
who are actively showing up on street corners, who are actually handing out leaflets, hot boys for Zohran, hot girls for Zohran. They're all wearing these like snappy T-shirts, and they're out there. They're making TikToks. They're really putting the message out there.
So, Saurabh, the message is resonating, whether we assume that it's divisive or communisty or any of those things. It's resonating with a large group of people who are willing to step out and campaign for him.
Yeah, it is. So there are two things over here. First is what he's doing is nothing new, is nothing novel. It's been there through history where somebody comes in and says, hey, look, I will defy the law of economics and make things cheaper for you. And there is a bunch of people who are economically illiterate that will vote for him. And then there will be consequences of that. And then the rest of the country will say this is what happens when you put somebody like him. And then there'll be a backlash. And that's just, the normal cyclical nature of the long view of history over here. So but it obviously doesn't happen in a day. So it kind of reminds you of that Indira Gandhi slogan. Was it Garibi Hatao, right? It was an aspiration. How she was going to hatao Garibi, nobody knew, nobody asked, nobody cared. She nationalized a lot of the services, and that caused a lot of problems. So it's not unusual for somebody to offer freebies, the Pied Piper of New York, to offer freebies and for people to lap it up. The main question here really is not so much why he's so popular, which one can explain by, well, rather how he's so popular, but how did we get here? How did we get to where we are? And that I'm not going to let Mr. Singh off the hook that easily on this. This hasn't, Zohran Mamdani, a completely inexperienced guy whose only claim to fame is his filmmaking mother.
And he's not. They say he lives in Queens, etc., but he comes from an affluent background.
Very affluent background. But how have we come to that point? We have come to this particular point because you've got a large population in the United States who are living in the era of extreme affluence, who have everything at their fingertips, and who have very spoiled lives, and who think that their lives are bad. And they think their lives are bad, and they will come up with all of these economic indicators that their lives are bad, but they have no idea what the rest of the world is. And so they live in a delusion. And because they live in a delusion, they create somebody from the delusion to fight a straw man, imaginary monster. Capitalism, that's what you have. So in the end, what you're seeing here essentially are years of progressive, or you can call it liberal, call it whatever you want, progressive training of the mind that has made the mind and made these people very entitled, spoilt. So this is not a rebellion of the peasants. This is not Bolshevik revolution. This is not the French Revolution. These guys are too lazy and glued to their iPhones to do a revolution. This is the spoilt masses. And you had one version of this, which was Occupy Wall Street a few years ago, and you now have a new version of it. And they sleep on the roses of the bed of capitalism, and they criticize the very system that has given them everything that the rest of the world envies. And so, good, you'll find out. But I'll tell you one thing. My guess is that Zohran, whose name sounds like he's one of those Flash Gordon. Do you remember Flash Gordon? One of those Flash Gordon villains, Zohran, the owner of the universe. He's fighting
the Marvel universe.
Marvel universe. My guess is that Zohran is not that stupid, and Zohran is going to do a 180-degree turnaround. Once he'll keep eating with his hands. There's nothing wrong with that. I eat with my hands as well. He's going to do a 180-degree turnaround, and he's going to do what all politicians do, which is not fulfill what he said he was going to fulfill, because he needs money. And Trump has basically said to him, play any bullshit, we're going to take the money away from you. And Trump will do that. So I think he'll do.
So is that fair that you punish a population, say New Yorkers, Rohan, because they voted for someone you don't like, whose ideology you don't agree with? So you say, I'm not going to give you any money. I mean, if that happened in India, if the prime minister in India said that to any state, there would be chaos.
Yeah. No, so I think Dr. Jha raised many points, most of them wrong. But I agree with the last thing that he said, that, yeah, I think you do have to bear the consequences of what you want. I'll answer one thing that he raised, which is, I fully appreciate what he's talking about, that there's this sense of indignation that sets in rich countries like America, and particularly rich countries like New York. And again, I don't need to quote facts, you guys know this. If New York City was if the New York metropolitan area were a country, it would be the 7th or 8th largest economy in the world. And, up until like 5 years back, a city of 8 million people had the same GDP as India, a country of 1.4 billion people. So, money runs the city. Money is important. It thrives on capitalism. Ever since the early 1600s, it's always been capitalist. So I disagree with Dr. Jha on one thing, that it's this grassroots level anti-capitalism has been brewing for a while. Not at all true. Like, even if you're the most socialist person living in New York, you thrive on the fact that it is the bedrock, if not the lighthouse of capitalism. So that's one. Another one is the numbers are important. So yes, Dr. Jha is absolutely right that there are some of these extremely liberal, extremely wealthy women, and I'm going to call out the women because they voted for him disproportionately, white women in Manhattan, living in their penthouses on the Upper West Side and Upper East Side, are the ones who've come out and voted for him disproportionately. Yeah, there's a sense of indignation. There's a sense of the white man is bad and the brown man is going to do it. These are the same women who voted for Kamala. These are the same women who voted for Obama twice. So yes, there is that contingent. But I think the numbers are important, Dr. Jha. As a percentage of the total population, they cannot sway the votes. So yes, even if there's take an extreme example, even if there's 500,000 extraordinarily wealthy hedge fund, trust fund types, the people who it's resonating with are not just them. It is the students, it is the poorer sections, it is the taxi drivers, it is the corner store people, it's professionals like you and me. I think we have to give credit to the fact that it's more than just this one ideology, because yes, the woman living on the Upper East Side who says, all right, my taxes are going to go up by 2%, but I don't care because there's going to be justice in the world and a brown man is the right person to lead us. Great. But the person whose income is going to go down and the person who now has to worry about food on the table versus no food on the table, he's also getting attracted by Zohran. So I do think we have to take that into account. But Advaita, to your point, no, I think Trump, like many other things, has not played his cards well here. If anything, that sort of indignation or self-righteousness that people have, which is so all that, let's be clear, what Trump is saying at this point is, don't vote for this communist. He's going to destroy my favorite city in the world. It's my city because he was born here, and I can't believe what's going to happen. It's going to be the downfall, and don't do it. And if you do it, he's threatening with this thing. So is it a classy move? Not at all. Is it a smart move? Not at all. But like many other things that Trump does, this is his way. And yes, the self-righteous population will be like, oh, Trump says I should do this, I'm going to do the opposite of it. So I do think that. Can he withhold funding? I mean, sure, he can, but he'd have to have a rationale for it. And I think his rationale would be, you're giving this money to illegal immigrants. And I mean, as you know, the government is shut down these days for precisely.
No, and also I think find assist in legal battles as well. For illegal immigrants, provide funding for them to hire lawyers and do all of those things.
Yeah.
A lot of our viewers are asking.
No, I was just going to say that's something that Adams was cracking down on. That was the sort of stuff that Adams was cracking down on, where he said, we're a democratic state, we're a blue city within a democratic state. We want to lead by example. We're a humanitarian place, but we're not open to any and every illegal immigrant who comes in and give them hotel vouchers and free housing and children in schools. So to Dr. Jha's point from earlier, yes, there is a sense of like we need to be more human, but there is also a sense of reality. And I think Eric Adams did a really good job of that. I mean, yes, he's now persona non grata and he's dropped out of the race. But as a typical Democrat, as someone who truly leans left of center, he also said, okay, he capitulated beyond a certain point and he said, we're not going to accept anymore. So there is that sense that, he was seen more of a Trump ally, that he was going to go ahead with some of these ICE deportations, that this would not be a sanctuary city anymore. And yeah, there is that fear that Zohran might make this into an urban blight.
Yeah. And the other thing I want to ask you all, and a lot of our viewers are asking that, there was some video of his, I have not seen it myself, but it was an anti-Hindu video. And he's also been talking about...
I know exactly what you're talking about.
So what was this video, Rohan? What was it? Because I haven't seen it.
Well, I've seen it, and it's part of the whole narrative of who he is, which is basically he's a bit of a fraud. He loves cosplaying into this whole thing of eating with his hands, calling himself a sort of poor brown immigrant when he's quite the opposite. We know he's part of the global elite. His mother is one of the most well-known, wealthiest people in Hollywood, very influential. I mean, for someone to turn away directing the new Harry Potter movie, which would have landed her at least $30 million, goes to show that, this is not someone who's wanting for cash. And it was really recently discovered that she owns an apartment in Chelsea, which is one of the most expensive neighborhoods in New York City. And she lives in it for like 2 days in a year. And of course, his rationale was, that's her money, not mine. True, fair enough. But he's an only child of Indian parents. So who's really going to get it?
Yeah.
Whose money is it?
The thing is,
Go
ahead.
to make one point over here, which is with regards to that question about his anti-Hindu rant. And my analysis of that is that that's a reflection on his mom, not on his dad. Like many people say, oh, his dad is Muslim, so he's saying that. So no, I think his mom is Hindu, that's why he's saying that. His mom comes from a generation of Hindus for whom hating Hindus, self-flagellating against Hinduism was the fashionable thing to do. Because that's most of the self-flagellation in India against Hindus comes from Hindus. It doesn't really come from Muslims. It comes from Hindus who believe that that's kind of both an intellectual symbol and
you think it's fashionable to do that?
Of course it is. It's intellectually fashionable to do that in the same way as it's intellectually fashionable to go after Christianity, after Mormonism, after every other religion except for one. And that's fine. But let's understand what the roots of those are. So I'm not sure that that's reflective of his foreign policy. I'm not sticking up for him, but I think we have to understand what the roots of those are. The roots of this are the same
well, let's talk about the video.
Wait, one second.
Let's talk about the actual video.
Yeah, let's talk about the video.
So the point I'm making over here is that when you look into, I mean, he basically, I think he said Hindus are bastards or something like that.
Let me tell you, I've seen the video, so let me just talk about what the video is, and then we can talk about it. So the video that he made, which was on TikTok or Instagram, where he said so he never calls himself Indian. He does not identify as an Indian person. He does not identify as a Hindu. He calls himself an African Muslim, and he's got every right to. But in this video, he talks about the fact that that his father is a Gujarati Muslim who had to flee India because of the massive persecution and pogroms that were held against Muslims, especially Gujarati Muslims. And he ends it by saying, thank God my father left because there are hardly any Gujarati Muslims even left. So he basically called it an ethnic cleansing, except, I mean, of course, it's full of facts that are untrue because his father was born in Uganda, which means his grandparents probably left Gujarat in the sort of 1920s or 1930s. And if he's referring to the unfortunate event that happened a few years back, that was 2022. So, this whole thing about I'm one of the few Gujarati Muslims left in the world, and thank God for the fact that my family could get up. He made it sound like the equivalent of a Jewish Holocaust.
Yeah, so
So
basically
back to
that
your
kind of
question.
stuff, that resonates with New York's Hindu population, is what I'm pointing out to you.
I don't agree with that.
Well, you
I
might not
disagree with
agree
that
with it, but
completely.
this is essentially this. It doesn't put them off, because you have this
I think it does
class
put
of
them off. I
people.
think because
No,
people can
no,
see
I
that
don't think
it's
so.
wrong.
No, I don't think so. I think this is, they're voting for him. You yourself said they're voting for him, and it is a mindset that you have that is like, oh, okay, we're bad Hindus, and we're not really Hindus, we're atheists. So there's a lot of Hindu self-flagellation in all of this, and you have to understand this in the broader cultural context of the progressive movement, a subset of which was are the Hindus in the United States. And if you understand their mindset, you'll understand why this guy is popular, or rather why he's not unpopular. And so,
I stand corrected.
yeah,
Someone just pointed out that his father was born in Mumbai and not in Uganda. So
well,
either way,
regardless
if
of where
his
his father
father,
was born,
yeah,
the point is that this guy is obviously cooking shit up. But I would go deeper than that. I would ask the question, why doesn't that piss off the Hindus in New York? The ones that go to the restaurants that you frequent, like
I
um,
love the lifestyle that you think I have, which I don't. But I'll let that
I,
fallacy
I also want
continue.
to make one other point that Rohanjit Singh made, because at the end of the day, this must really baffle you. I mean, this must baffle anybody in India why this guy is so popular, and I am not baffled at
And I'll
all.
tell you why I think he's popular. And I've
But
said it twice, but I'll try for
one
a third
second,
time.
one
Okay,
second.
okay. So I'm going to intervene. Saurabh finishes in the
Yeah,
next 1 minute, and then
yeah.
we move to.
So so Ranjit Singh said earlier on that we bask in capitalism in New York. It's like bigger than most economies. That's the thing. These guys that bask in the capitalism, eat all the fruits of capitalism, still criticize capitalism because there's no skin in the game. They can do that. It's free of charge. They can have these pieties because the system's still there. Now you have one guy who can break the system, and Mr. Singh is shitting his pants. Now he knows that all the pieties that he had been coming out with, oh God, I'm going to have to put my money where my mouth is. And he's scared. Have you thought about moving to Texas, Ranjit Singh? Apparently, they love Indians over there.
Are we moving on?
Rohan,
Are we going to talk about this a little more and better? I'd love to.
oh yes, please go ahead. Go ahead.
So I do think there's so I'll admit ignorance. I obviously don't speak for every Hindu living in New York because that would be wrong of me. I do think Dr. Jha is just wrong on this one, just plain simple wrong. I think he's taken a conjecture or a sort of straw man argument and he's building on it after having spoken to maybe three people. I think the reason, if there are Hindus out here who do believe in Zohran and want him elected, I don't think it has anything to do with his identity. I think people are literally saying, okay, he lied on his college application, like someone just pointed out, which he did. He calls himself a black African, even though he's not. He identifies as a Muslim. He does believe in the Intifada. He does believe in arresting Modi and Bibi Netanyahu if they come to New York. Okay,
Has
they
he
put that.
Rohan, I just need to know. Has he?
Yeah,
I know he said that about Netanyahu. He said that about Modi as well?
he said they're cut from the same cloth. He said that he would. Well, he definitely said that about Netanyahu, but then he followed up by saying that Modi is cut from the same cloth, and these are people who promote pogroms and genocide. And he would do whatever he can by, if he becomes mayor, to promote the ICC, the International Court of whatever it's called, which would then call both of these people genocide facilitators. So be that as it may, I think the message is much more than just communalism or these sound bites, Dr. Jha. I think it's just he is genuinely appealing to people who are saying, okay, well, what are the choices? Eric Adams, he takes bribes from Turkey. Cuomo, he's this entitled guy who lives in Albany who doesn't even deign to live in New York, and he molested 15 women. Zohran, okay, he's got some wacky ideas about the Intifada. Okay, he identifies as a Muslim and he says that he's sort of pro-Palestine. Who cares? he's the better fit. I do think the biggest thing we're ignoring here is he's giving very 2007 Obama vibes. He's young, he's photogenic, he smiles all the time, he's never harassed any women, he's very pro LGBT, he's very sort of pro poor, and whether it's eating with his hands, whether it's sort of wearing his crumpled suits and living in a place like Queens, he comes across, even though it's not true, he comes across as a really good actor. And guess who gave him that training? His mother. So yeah, good for him. He's picked up on the best of Meera Nair, who's basically saying, do this, act like this, make this move, call yourself poor, and it's working. So I do think we're overplaying this whole Hindu-Muslim thing here. I just don't think it's relevant.
Okay. Then what about the Jews then? I mean, New York has a large...
That's a really good point. I'm so glad you raised that.
A lot of them are
Jewish
in the
population.
finance sector, a lot of Orthodox Jews, Brooklyn, pretty much Ashkenazi Jews. Huge,
everyone.
vibrant.
So I think this is if Dr. Jha had made the statement about Jewish people shitting in their pants, borrowing your phrase here, Saurabh, I think you're right. I think the Jewish population is spooked. They have heard globalize the Intifada. They have like anyone who's in politics in America says, oh, I'm going to go to the Holy Land and I'm going to go and pay my respects at the Wailing Wall. And again, I actually give him credit for this. He says, I'm going nowhere. I'm going to stay right here and I'm going to focus on the people of New York, including Jewish voters. But no, he definitely has them spooked. There's been a lot of movement. As we know, the numbers are out there. There's been about 350,000 people who've moved out from COVID to now. So yeah, I think one of the things that New York is already struggling with is a decreasing population. And the newcomers who are coming in are not the wealthy ones. They are the poorer immigrants. So the fabric of the city is changing. The wealthier people are being seduced away to places like Florida, mainly Florida, not Texas. And yeah, some of the flight has begun. So he is, that is certainly something that but I wouldn't say.
It's an interesting term used by Rohanjit Singh, seduced. No, they haven't been seduced, Rohanjit Singh. They have been driven. It's not seduction.
No, I think it's a combination.
One second. Let me speak. Don't interrupt. You have a very bad habit of interrupting. Even your viewers have said that. So let me speak. I think you've kind of got the whole thing wrong, and you're projecting your own thoughts on a larger population. I don't know how many cab drivers you speak to, but I will tell you that your understanding of the dynamics of your own city you live in, is really just what you've done is you've cloned yourself and you think that there are 100,000 Rohanjit Singhs out there. That's not how it is. People do. Firstly, the first thing you have to understand is when somebody is very anti a particular religion, Hindu, for instance, and if the Hindus still go out in droves to vote for this guy, it means, by definition, they don't give a crap about his being anti-Hindu. That is, by definition, it means that. There's no other explanation. Now, if you are anti-Muslim, and as a result of that, the Muslims say, I'm not voting for this guy because he's anti-Muslim, it means that is high enough on your voting preference over something like the economy or something else like that. So the point to appreciate over here is that his clear anti-Hindu stance hasn't pushed the Hindus away from voting for him. So it's not a communalism thing. So let's be clear what it is. It's not a communalism thing. It is basically a thing about self-flagellation, which Advaita understands very well from the lefty group in India. Number one. Number two, when you talk about all the stuff that, he's telegenic, photogenic, smiles, acts, his mother's probably directing, that may all very well be true. But you still have to get to the very basics over here, is why is a guy who is essentially promising defunding the police, crime is a social construct, that's what he's saying, I'm going to buy grocery stores that's going to be owned by the government, number three, I'm going to give stuff to the illegal immigrants. Why is that being lapped up by New York's population? And that is a consequence of what I would call advanced stage capitalism. Advanced stage capitalism is when you're so flushed with the benefits of capitalism that you turn against it. And progressivism, we want to think of it as, and I want to think of it as, essentially brain dead progressivism, is really a manifestation of advanced stage capitalism. That's what's going on over here. And it's unfortunate, but it is the arc of history. And yes, we did see glimpses of it during Obama's time. So I'm glad you brought up the comparison to Obama. The Occupy Wall Street was that movement that happened there. I know it's not as, and yes,
and George
people did storm, the whole globalized intifada. Look what happened at the campuses at NYU, Columbia. This is a manifestation of preferences. So yes, you are going to get the government you deserve, because this is really what democracy is all about.
Saurabh, for those of us sitting on the outside, what's happening in New York and the possibility of Mamdani becoming mayor gives us deja vu, because we immediately look at London, where, by the way, there was a Syrian Muslim who killed 2 people in a synagogue just a couple of hours ago. You guys were probably
in Manchester,
sleeping.
right?
Right. So there is this this opinion, rather, or this perception that New York is going London's way, with Sadiq Khan and how he is, and now Mamdani.
I think New York was always ahead of London in terms of its crime, at least in recent times.
Not just crime, but even the sanctuary city, the change in the demographics, the exit or the exodus of people, and being replaced by other demographics. All of that is going on.
Yes, if it happens very suddenly. I mean, one of the reasons why, if you have, you talk about fabric of a particular society, and the fabric is to some extent determined by demographics, and any demographic shift that occurs too rapidly, as you can when you have a successful city, you're naturally going to draw people that want to work over there. But also you can change that through through unvetted immigration, which is one of the things that Democrats now, it seems, deliberately wanted to do. But I could see the comparison you're making, but I would make I would also make another comparison, though, which is with that guy in Delhi. What's his name? Kejriwal, right? Yeah. So Kejriwal's popularity to some extent stemmed from the fact that he was offering freebies, free electricity, if I understand correctly. And nobody really asked, well, who's going to pay for that? Now, Kejriwal was much smarter than Mamdani, and much more corrupt and ruthless than it seems Mamdani might turn out to be. So he had a big palace of his own, didn't he, Kejriwal? So he was, he turned out to be the typical politician in the end, even though he fought against corruption. So that is one thing that we have in the recent past, and another thing that we have as a comparison to India, because it would help your viewers to think about New York's potential decline. I hope it doesn't, but it might decline to another great city in India, which declined rather rapidly, rather fast, and rather irreversibly, Calcutta. And Calcutta had an influx of, the comparisons to New York aren't exact, but there are 2 or 3 strands. First being the fact that you had a whole lot of unvetted immigrants because of the 1971 war and other situations. The second was you had this group of people the Naxalites, and then you had a government that kept promising to give freebies. And you had socialism. And once you start entering that socialist thing, you have a vicious spiral. And the industry left Calcutta. It was the number 1 city in India, and now it's the number 1 nostalgic city in India. That's where I think the comparison is going to be.
Not so much with London. You don't see this comparison with London being a fair one?
Well, London, I think, you've got, London has had a slow decline. I don't think it's over years. I don't think it's got the same exact decline, or rather potential decline, as New York. And the crime in London has been increasing recently, but the crime in New York, the subway system in New York has been bad for at least a good 5 to 10 years. I mean, I know Giuliani, Rudy reduced the crime by his, broken window, no nonsense situation. But I don't think that it really followed that much even after that. So
No, I remember visiting New York for the first time in '95, and one couldn't take the
It was
subway, and we were students,
yeah.
and it was so expensive to take cabs. But we then would rush back home before like 9:30, 10 at night to make sure that we didn't have to get on the subways. But now, when I go, the subway is so convenient, so safe to use.
And
Rohan.
that's been a Giuliani thing. Rudy Giuliani really changed. I mean, Times Square was basically pimps and prostitutes,
Yes. Oh,
and
yes.
now it's basically kid haven. So I'd say there's been that period from say 99 till about 2015, where between Giuliani and Bloomberg, things got cleaner, safer. Then there was a big decline from 2015 till about 2021, when de Blasio basically allowed for pot smoking to happen everywhere. He said prostitution should be legalized again. It's a lifestyle choice. So, he's very similar to Zohran. And then a lot of people refer to Eric Adams as the Black Giuliani, because he basically was reading out and acting out the exact same policies. And it felt better because it was coming from a black man rather than a sort of imperialistic right-wing white man. And I do think that decline will happen again with Zohran, because there are certain things that are just, no matter which side of the spectrum you lean towards, there are certain things that he says that are just abominable. Like he says, drug addiction is a lifestyle choice. He wants, calling people homeless is wrong. You should call them currently unhoused individuals, as though, they're unhoused today, but they might be in a mansion tomorrow. So just give them grace for where the period of.
Oh no, they will be in a mansion tomorrow. They'll be in your mansion.
One second. So sorry, I missed that, but I'll come back to that. So there is this sense that he is going so extreme left that it's just not making sense anymore. I missed that.
Ron, you missed it.
He said
they will be in a mansion tomorrow. They'll be in your mansion.
Well, I need one first.
But you can always stay with me. I have no problems with that, Ron.
You know what? It'll take a lot for me to move from New York, declining New York, to declined Philadelphia. So no shame, no hate. But I think if New York's heading the way of Philadelphia, then you're right. It's definitely something to worry about.
Guilty as charged. You don't want to head the way of Philadelphia.
Okay, I think
I'm so glad you bring that up.
Saurabh needs to go now. He has another meeting. Thank you so much, both of you, for doing this early in the morning. I know it's as you can tell, it's a better time in India because we had so many comments coming in, and I want to thank our viewers for being so engaged. I couldn't take all the comments, but I did try and take as many as was possible. And I hope we do this again. New York is a great city. I love that city. I hope it gets a good mayor, whoever it might be, even if it's Mamdani. I hope it doesn't take it back to the 90s and just how unsafe New York was.
I hope so too. It's a great city.
It's a great city. So thank you everybody for watching, and we will be back with both of you. I guess we can talk about Bihar at some point, Saurabh, and maybe Rohan will have some.
No, I'm afraid of Rohan. When it comes to Bihar, he'll plaster me. So I'm afraid.
I'll be like a wallflower.
But thank you so much for watching. Do share this video if you enjoyed it, and like, share, subscribe. And thank you both of you, and have a great day. Friday, the weekend's coming up. Thank you. Bye-bye.